The issue of cross-cultural differences relative to background knowledge has been actually an interesting subject of quite a bit of research. One of my favorite studies was done by some of my colleagues at the University of Illinois, Ralph Reynolds, Marsha Taylor, who's African American, Margaret or Peg Stephenson, who's a linguist, or Larry Shire and Richard Anderson, who are educational psychologists. So it was a good group, and they did a really, I thought, a powerful demonstration of cultural schemata and how it works, and it reinforces a couple of points that I make in some of the other lectures on the video. In this study, they share a letter. They have students high school kids read a letter that a high school kid wrote to a kid who isn't at the school. And so let me read you the letter, and it's a little long, so I might not read the whole thing, and then tell you a little bit about what they did. They were not just interested in recall here, they really wanted to see to what extent students understood what was talked about in the letter. So this is a letter to a fellow student, Dear Joe. I bet you're surprised to be hearing from your old friend Sam. Sam's the writer letter. It's been a long time since you moved away, so I thought I'd drop you a line to catch you up on what's going on around here. Things haven't changed much. The weather's been really bad. We're only being let out of school a couple of days. Everybody in the family's okay, and my cousin is still asking about you. School has been going okay, but I did get into some trouble last week. It started out as a typical Thursday. Typical, that is, until lunchtime. At that point, things started to get interesting, but don't let me get ahead of myself. I'll start at the beginning. Renee, my sister, and I were almost too late for school. Renee had terrible trouble getting her chores done, and I couldn't leave without her. We barely caught our ride and made it to school just as the tardy bell rang. Classes went at the usual slow pace through the morning, so at noon I was ready, really ready for lunch. I got in line behind Bubba. As usual, the line was moving pretty slow and we were all getting pretty restless. For a little action, Bubba turned around and said, "Hey Sam, what are you doing, man? You are so ugly that when the doctor delivered you, he slapped your face." Everybody laughed, but they laughed even harder when I shot back, "Oh yeah? Well, you are so ugly the doctor turned around and slapped your mother." It got even wilder when Bubba said, "Well man, at least my daddy ain't no Girl Scout." We really got into it then. After a while, more people got involved. 4, 5, and then 6. It was a riot. After a while, more people got involved even still. All of a sudden, Mr. Reynolds, the gym teacher, came over to try to quiet things down. The next thing we knew, we were all in the office. The principal made us stay after school for a week. He's so straight. On top of that, he sent word home that he wanted to talk to our folks in his office Monday afternoon. Boy, did I get it when I got home. That's the 3rd notice I got this semester. As we were leaving the principal's office, I ran into Bubba again. We decided we'd finish where we left off, but this time we'd wait until we got off the school grounds. Well, I have to run now. I've got to take out the trash before Mum gets home. Write soon and let me know what's going on with you. Later, Sam. Well, interesting passage to use in the school. As I said, they were using this passage with high school kids, and they asked them to respond. African American, white kids and African American kids both responded to it. Well, as you might predict, you know, the type of thing that you sort of witness in here, which Labov has talked about as a form of sounding, isn't necessarily something that the white kids who read the passage understood. And what was interesting is when the researchers got the results and could sort of see these huge differences between the African American kids who totally got what was going on and the white kids who couldn't really figure it out. And they talked about this. I thought the article ended with a wonderful quote, wonderful statement by the researchers, where they talk about the fact that they shared some of the findings with the kids. And one of the kids with whom they shared, an African American kid, said, upon being told that white children understood the letter to be about a fight instead of sounding, he looked in surprised and said, what's the matter? Can't they read? Well, I think what's important about this study and what impresses you about this concept, can't they read, is too often minorities are the ones who are viewed as the people having difficulty at reading, and usually because they're reading material not within their experience or not that capitalizes upon the cultural understandings, the background knowledge they bring to bear. And so it's interesting to think about this whole background knowledge thesis in terms of sort of challenging how it is we pull together curriculum, the types of materials we read, and how we actually look at different children's reading of different passages. One of my key frustrations has been a gravitation, for example, in testing theory to a use of homogeneity variable, right and response theory, to basically exclude passages where kids who might normally perform well on, because there's an attitude that kids across all passages should perform the same, as if there isn't a sort of a cultural element or a background knowledge element, which would mean that some kids would outperform other kids depending upon their background knowledge. There's a sort of assumption that reading ability is sort of tied to some abstract ability and not so connected to one's engagement with the world, one's background knowledge, and how one connects to the ideas and how they're expressed in the world. And again, unfortunately, most tests are developed with the view that the performance on one passage should line up with the performance on the next passage and the next passage, when in reality, I would expect different kids, depending upon their background knowledge, to perform differently, assuming you've got a broad range of texts representing the possibilities of kids being able to bring their different background knowledge, their different experiences with different texts to bear. For example, I can easily imagine how somebody could pull together a whole set of texts for which I lack the background experience, the understandings, particularly in this digital world right now, where I might not be exposed to the same things that somebody else might be. On other text, maybe text from this journal, the Reading Research Quarterly, I might do quite well on. But then on texts from other realms, I might do fairly poorly. Okay, let me move from that issue to an extension of the background knowledge issue that I've done a little bit in my own research now.